The sestertius, or cestus, was an ancient Roman coin. During the Roman Republic it was a small, silver coin issued only on rare occasions. During the Roman Empire it was a large brass coin. The name Sestertius means 2.5, the coin's original value in asses, and is a combination of semis, half, and tertius, third, that is, the third half or half the third. The form cestus, derived from French, was once used in preference to the Latin form, but is now considered old-fashioned. It is abbreviated as a struck through HS or IIS. History. The sestertius was introduced c. 211 BC as a small silver coin valued at 1/4 of a denarius. A silver denarius was supposed to weigh about 4.5 grams, valued at 10 grams, with the silver sestertius valued at 2.5 grams. In practice, the coins were usually underweight. When the denarius was retariffed to 16 asses, the sestertius was accordingly revalued to 4 asses, still equal to 1/4 of a denarius. It was produced sporadically, far less often than the denarius, through 44 BC. In or about 23 BC, with the coinage reform of Augustus, the denomination of sestertius was introduced as the large brass denomination. Augustus tariffed the value of the sestertius as 1/100th aureus. The sestertius was produced as the largest brass denomination until the late 3rd century AD. Most were struck in the Mint of Rome, but from AD 64 during the reign of Nero and Vespasian, the Mint of Lyon supplemented production. Lyon sestertii can be recognized by a small globe, or legend stop, beneath the bust. The brass sestertius typically weighs in the region of 25 to 28 grams, is around 32 to 34 millimeters in diameter and about 4 millimeters thick. The distinction between bronze and brass was important to the Romans. Their name for brass was aurichalcum, a word sometimes also spelled aurichalcum, meaning gold-copper, because of its shiny, gold-like appearance when the coins were newly struck. Aurichalcum was considered, by weight, to be about double the value of bronze. This is why the half sestertius, the dupondius, was around the same size and weight as the bronzes, but was worth 2 asses. Sestertii continued to be struck until the late 3rd century, although there was a marked deterioration in the quality of the metal used and the striking, even though portraiture remained strong. Later emperors increasingly relied on melting down older sestertii, a process which led to the zinc component being gradually lost as it burned off in the high temperatures needed to melt copper. The shortfall was made up with bronze and even lead. Later sestertii tend to be darker in appearance as a result and are made from more crudely prepared blanks. The gradual impact of inflation caused by debasement of the silver currency meant that the purchasing power of the sestertius and smaller denominations like the dupondius annas was steadily reduced. In the 1st century AD, everyday small change was dominated by the dupondius annas, but in the 2nd century, as inflation bit, the sestertius became the dominant small change. In the 3rd century, silver coinage contained less and less silver, and more copper or bronze. By the 260s and 270s the main unit was the double denarius, the Antoninianus, but by then these small coins were almost all bronze. Although these coins were theoretically worth 8 sestertii, the average sestertius was worth far more in plain terms of the metal it contained. Some of the last sestertii were struck by Aurelian during the end of its issue, when sestertii were reduced in size and quality. The double sestertius was issued first by Trajan Decius and later in large quantity by the ruler of a breakaway regime in the West, named Postumus, who often used worn old sestertii to overstrike his image and legends on. The double sestertius was distinguished from the sestertius by the radiate crown worn by the emperor, a device used to distinguish the dupondius from the as and the Antoninianus from the denarius. Eventually, the inevitable happened. Many sestertii were withdrawn by the state and by forgers to melt down to make the debased Antoninianus, which made inflation worse. In the coinage reforms of the 4th century, the sestertius played no part and passed into history as a unit of account. The sestertius was also used as a standard unit of account, represented on inscriptions with the monogram HS. Large values were recorded in terms of sestertium millia, thousands of sestertii, with the millia often omitted and implied. The hyper-wealthy general and politician of the late Roman Republic, Crassus, was said by Pliny the Elder to have had estates worth 200 million sesterces. A loaf of bread cost roughly half a sestertius, and a sextarius of wine anywhere from less than half to more than 1 sestertius. 1 modius of wheat in 79 AD. Pompey cost 7 sestertii, of rye 3 sestertii, a bucket 2 sestertii, a tunic 15 sestertii, a donkey 500 sestertii. According to Tacitus in his Annal, Book 1, Chapter 17.4 and 17.5, soldiers of the Rhine army, who rose up against Tiberius were paid 10 as a day, of which they had to pay their own uniforms. They demanded to be paid a denarius a day. Records from Pompey show a slave being sold at auction for 6,252 sestertii. A writing tablet from Londinium, dated to c. 75125 AD, records the sale of a Gallic slave girl called Fortunata for 600 denarii, equal to 2,400 sestertii, to a man called Vegetus. It is difficult to make any comparisons with modern coinage or prices, but for most of the 1st century AD, the ordinary legionary was paid 900 sestertii per annum, rising to 1,200 under Domitian, the equivalent to 3.3 sestertii per day. Half of this was deducted for living costs, leaving the soldier with about 1.65 sestertii per day. Numismatic value. Sestertii are highly valued by numismatists, since their large size gave collator's a large area in which to produce detailed portraits and reverse types. The most celebrated are those produced for Nero between the years 64 and 68 AD, created by some of the most accomplished coin engravers in history. The brutally realistic portraits of this emperor, and the elegant reverse designs, greatly impressed and influenced the artists of the Renaissance. The series issued by Hadrian, recording his travels around the Roman Empire, brilliantly depicts the empire at its height, and included the first representation on a coin of the figure of Britannia. It was revived by Charles II, and was a feature of United Kingdom coinage until the 2008 redesign, as a result of ceasing production and withdrawals from circulation in the 4th century. Sestertii are less common as a whole compared to other Roman bronze coins. Fully struck examples with sharp detail often command high premiums at auction.